In modern warfare, what happens when you accidentally kill civilians? Moral outrage? International protests? No. Today, we're skipping the politics. We are only talking about the brutally realistic, completely counterintuitive data. We're looking at a hardcore warfare report from the National Bureau of Economic Research, and in this explainer, we are going to completely shatter everything you thought you knew about modern conflict.
So picture this. You're in Afghanistan. An operation goes wrong. A strike misses its mark. Innocent civilians are killed. What exactly happens in the weeks that follow? Do villagers march in the streets? Does the media just write angry articles? Stop guessing. Let's look at the actual math.
The answer is exactly 1. According to this report, which is backed by real geolocated, classified records, an average incident causing 2 civilian casualties will manufacture exactly 1 additional violent attack in that exact same district over the next 6 weeks. That's not a random chance. That is a statistical certainty. Part 1, Fatal Misjudgment, the real cost of collateral damage. For years, military commanders assumed civilian casualties were just unavoidable collateral damage. The idea was that unarmed locals couldn't actually fight back. Well, the data totally destroys that arrogance. Look at the left side here. When international forces accidentally kill civilians, violent attacks spike. They are literally using their own firepower to manufacture enemies. But look at the right side. When Taliban insurgents blow up civilians, zero backlash, no consequences at all from the locals. Why are the counterinsurgents the only ones paying for their mistakes? Part 2, the revenge effect, how violence is actually manufactured. This massive asymmetry isn't just a sudden burst of temporary anger from the locals. It is a highly efficient, fully functional violence assembly line. Researchers call this the revenge effect. This isn't just about people being mad. This is about recruitment. The loss of an innocent life translates directly into long-term fuel for insurgent violence. The mechanics here are crystal clear. Step 1, international forces cause a casualty. Step 2, deep grief and anger spread through the local community. Then comes Step 3, the absolute turning point. Insurgent groups like the Taliban capitalize on that exact hatred, making it incredibly easy to recruit new fighters. And Step 4, a few weeks later, those new recruits pick up weapons, and long-term violent attacks soar. The mistake you made in Step 1 literally becomes the bullet fired back at you in Step 4.
Part 3, Hardcore Logic, the methodology behind the numbers. Now, you might be asking, did the violence cause the casualties, or did the casualties cause the violence? To eliminate any coincidences, the researchers used an incredibly strict apples-to-apples comparison. They found hundreds of pairs of districts, let's call them District A and District B, that had the exact same levels of violence and identical populations over the past few months. The only difference? District A just experienced civilian casualties caused by coalition forces. This proves without a shadow of a doubt that the subsequent spike in violence was exclusively caused by those civilian deaths. Just look at this climbing curve. The horizontal axis is time after the incident, and the vertical axis is the spike in attacks. When coalition forces cause a casualty, the fire of revenge doesn't burn out right away. It actually keeps growing, peaking around a staggering 14 weeks later. This perfectly validates the revenge effect. It takes a few weeks to recruit, plan, arm up, and then boom, the violence erupts. Are you ready for an absolutely wild contrast? Look at this chart. When insurgents blow up civilians, the future violence curve is basically flat, dead silent. Nothing happens. Because the insurgents are either deeply embedded in the community, or they rule through fear the locals simply can't retaliate. So all that anger, all the consequences, they are entirely paid for by the outside counterinsurgency forces. Let this brutal truth sink in. In this messy game of war, every time a counterinsurgent pulls the trigger by mistake, they are personally handing a rifle to their newest enemy. That is not a political talking point. That is hard, undeniable mathematical probability. Every innocent person killed directly supplies the enemy with fresh troops. Part 4, the Iraq exception, a completely different battlefield. Right when we thought we had unlocked the universal code of warfare, there's a massive plot twist. The research team took this exact same analytical math over to Iraq, fully expecting to see the exact same revenge curve. But the results were shocking. In Iraq, civilian casualties caused by coalition forces didn't lead to a long-term spike in violence. The revenge effect was completely absent. The core difference here is the literal physical environment required to manufacture violence. Afghanistan is mostly vast, remote, rural areas.
Troops were spread thin, giving the Taliban plenty of time and space to reach out to angry villagers and recruit them. Iraq, on the other hand, was heavily urbanized, with a massive, tightly controlled coalition troop presence. In that kind of high-pressure environment, no matter how angry the locals got, they simply didn't have the space or the capability to turn that anger into an actual armed attack.
Part 5, Blind Spots, the limitations of the Iraq data.
Of course, every academic study has its limits. In Afghanistan, researchers had incredibly precise classified military GPS tracking, but in Iraq, they had to rely heavily on public media reports, which introduces a fatal flaw. If an area is too violent for journalists to safely enter, those casualties just don't get reported. Plus, the media often fails to specify if the victims were fighting-age males or women and children. So maybe the revenge effect didn't show up in Iraq because the environment was different, or maybe the data just wasn't sharp enough.
Part 6. Cold Revelations. The Strategic Math of War.
When you cut through all the complex numbers and charts and strip away all the romanticized ideas of warfare, you're left with this chilling realization. In modern warfare, protecting civilians isn't just a moral duty. It is the absolute strategic math of survival. If you don't understand this on the battlefield, it doesn't matter how much overwhelming firepower you have. You're just accelerating your own defeat. So the next time you hear the phrase collateral damage, ask yourself this: has anyone actually done the math on the cost of revenge?